What's that?
Spider.
Oh, shit. Kill it! It's not dead! Kill it! It's not dead! What are you doing, Ron? Oh, there we go.
There was a spider on the floor. It's dead now.
They probably inferred that from my screaming.
That'll be the intro.
Oh, good.
Welcome to the second official episode of the Bodkast. I'm here with SonOfAMitch show.
Oh.
Large and virile gentleman.
Large and in charge. That's how you're going to start this? With an in the introduction?
I can get it out later. I edited the shit out of the one with Perry. You have no idea how much, stammering and shit was in there.
Yammering.
Yammering Bill Ironwood.
No one's going to get that. I mean, one of your viewer, me right now, listening to this later, are going to get that.
The first 1.5 syllables of that joke.
Great.
Mitch, we've known each other for a good while now.
2 years.
Odds are, if people are listening to this, they probably know who you are, but because we have a lot of the same fans.
Yeah, I made a face, a grimace.
Yeah.
Not four-armed evil grimace.
Goro, I believe is his lore name. Give a brief rundown of your various accomplishments and conquerings.
I was Betaron in a Final Fantasy XIV voice remake. I've played Vegeta on more than 600 occasions. I think that's accurate. And I used to do rape fantasy porn, where I was the rapist. Just a voice, though.
Smashing. I'm going to keep as much of that as possible.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, that's about the highlights.
No, yeah, whatever. You do top 10 trends, and your own channel, I would say, are the highlights.
Yeah, I wish I had more time to work on top 10 trends. It's been a rough year, my own channel, it's been a rough year, but I have been consistent with top 10 trends, and it is fun to piss off people by the millions.
Yeah, and I would say, insofar as a top 10 channel can be decently funny, you've done a good job there, since they're more, I think you've said, almost satires of top 10 videos at this point.
I appreciate that a lot. I often am very hard on my work, especially when it's something as industrialized as a top 10. But back when Matt came to me, he said we were going to, and I'm quoting him here, he said we were going to be the weird third nipple on YouTube's under breast.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good, yeah.
And apt, as it turns out.
And apt, yeah. 800,000 fucking subscribers, apt.
Yeah, especially now, since that was before YouTube became
a hellscape
baby show. Yeah. A baby nightmare-scape. Because
we didn't know how bad of a decision that would be, considering ad revenue, because neither adpocalypse had happened yet.
Right, but strangely enough, the channel has been pretty resilient to that.
Tougher than most.
Yeah, but anyway. Aside from that, in your personal work, you're a Donkey Kong Country and the Legend of the Crystal Coconut. I would say the foremost expert in the field.
I hope so. It'd be nice to be the best at something, and if that's what it has to be...
The only other person I've seen do a video on that is Donkey, and it wasn't even the Crystal Coconut. It was just our errant episode of the show. So
no, that show has haunted me. That's why I designed SonOfAMitch the way it is, actually. I do want to get back to creating things, but... The original reason I decided to do, I guess, reviews, but more so I like to do spotlights on bizarre things is because I grew up with all these things. They haunt me. Now the burden of the ghost has been passed to you, and I can sleep better.
Hopefully. But I don't know how much we want to get into our shared appreciation of another animated travesty, because I know you're doing you're doing an installment on that. So
yes, I very much. I'll give a hint for anyone familiar. I'm trying to think of he who coops last coops the best. There you go. That's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, there you have it. I didn't want to dwell too much on the intro in this one because I talked with Perry about that for quite a while, but in his case, I think it was pertinent to the topics that I wanted to get into in that. And I feel in general that the first episode, while most people have said was interesting, was far too straight-faced. So I think we'll... Oh, boy. SoundCloud's going to love that. I think we'll get into this one there will be more jokes and hoo-haws.
No, not if I have anything to say about it.
And brouhahas.
Good man.
Oh, so the general topic that I want to at least start with today, because I don't want to ever discuss something directly related to someone's field of expertise in this. I think it's much more interesting if people wildly speculate and say whatever pops into their brain. So, bad video game stories. We're both amply familiar with bad movies.
Yeah.
And I would say, in terms of things of bad quality that people enjoy, movies are probably the go-to, but we're kind of getting to a point where games are commonly proficient enough that you can laugh at bad game stories instead of the entire experience just being unenjoyable.
One of the things I've always liked about bad games, before we begin, a very entertaining feature is, back when Oblivion came out, there's so much dialogue in Oblivion, they didn't bother to lip sync it, so they had I don't know.
They had an automated
dialoguing
lip-sync,
system,
yeah.
right? And it's goofy, but it kind of works. I absolutely love it when that doesn't work in the slightest. Mass Effect Andromeda is a fantastic example of that not working.
I would say, too, it's extremely funny when it incorporates a relatively competent automatic lip sync system, but other facial features and things aren't animated to a similar degree. Like, we were just watching that video of Rust, and it's very, very funny sometimes seeing people like shout things into the mic, and the mouth moves in this passable pantomime of what they're saying, but the face
like
remains
Pac-Man.
the face remains completely stoic.
Yeah. Bad video games. Well, there's quite a few out there, but we're not talking about standard AAA bad Watch Dogs. We're talking about
like I want to talk about like enjoyably bad game stories, because you have
stories.
If you look back, it's now at the point where there's a lot of old games that we can look back on more fondly, because now there are other games to play, and those aren't the only options, because back in the mid 90s when there were just tons
it was the only option, yeah.
Yeah, when mediocrity was just rampant, you didn't really have the benefit or have the luxury of laughing at things like Astyanax.
No, because you paid $65 for it.
Exactly, yeah. Now you get them for like $3, and it's
right, exactly. I get bundles on eBay, and they're just mystery bundles, and then I get 25 copies of Astyanax. Sports games. I'm trying to think of where to start. So when I was a kid, I grew up very fortunate. I had no friends, but I made up for it by my father liked video games very much, and he understood computers. So we had a fully functioning Macintosh PC setup, plus an NES and a Super Nintendo, all before I was 4 years old. Because when I was 4 years old, then the N64 came out. I remember a bad video game story. I'm not so sure, because I never got to play that much. I was busy with school and homework. I was actually a really good student before I turned 14.
Huh.
I read a lot. I still read a lot, but I read a lot more back then, probably about a book a night. And they were much smaller books than what I read now because I was a kid. But still, I read a lot. So I have a lot of memories of watching my dad play, and I would sit in his lap. And one thing that I like to remember is Super Mario Brothers 2. You finish a level, and then you have to get vored by a bird.
Yeah, and you told me that like the first time I saw you play Super Mario Brothers 2, and I was extremely amused because I also had that game as a kid, and I never considered the ramifications of going into the bird's mouth. I was just amused by the like animation of its mouth stretching, because it's probably like one of the most animated things in that game.
Yes, it is. But what you saw was a funny pixelated bird that goes "Mrrr," and Mario walks in and whatever. What I saw was my brain imagining what that looks like. So what I saw was a bird not ripping its jaw open, but like out of Silent Hill or something, where it just
right. You saw like the ring girl, like jaw thing,
and Mario walks into it. I would actually turn around and hide because I didn't like to see it, and then eventually I would get used to it, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the one level where it attacks you, and it betrayed my trust forever. So it was an enemy the entire time. Mario was killing himself by being digested by a bird.
Mario was it's like the beam me down Scotty thing in Star Trek.
Exactly.
He was warping, but his previous body just died, and a precise carbon copy was made in the new
How
location.
responsible for the phenomenon of vor pornography is that bird? Incredibly.
Do you think it's as or more responsible for the phenomenon of vor as a fetish as Cell consuming Android 17 and 18.
I know that's what did it for me.
Joey just sent me last night, or not last night, a little while ago, images from the show of when that
Inside
happened.
the tail, it's very
incredibly
disturbing.
disgusting.
Yeah.
I didn't remember it being like that.
Yeah, I don't either. They probably cut it for us, North
Maybe,
American.
yeah, for when it was...
No, so that's one. I'm trying to, from when I was really little, I had the fortune of my dad knew a lot about video games. He paid attention to Nintendo Power. We didn't have bad games when I was growing up. The other good memory I kind of have, the weird one, is Zombies Ate My Neighbors is a really fun game. Not if you're 4. And
then it's just terrifying.
Right. Level 4, chainsaw hedge maze. I still know, I know what it sounds like. It still rings alarm bells in my head if I hear it in the background on occasion. And it's scary because you've got that psychopath with the chainsaw and he chases you. And you have to go through the maze, but he doesn't have to. He can cut through the maze.
Well, he has a chainsaw.
He cheats.
Chainsaw privilege.
Right. Yeah. And you can't really save anyone in that level. So you're just watching him get to them first and buzzsaw them down. And then the only way to stop him, you can kill him with a ton of bazooka rounds, but the only way to prevent him from killing you, if you don't have the bazooka, is to drop a creepy-ass laughing clown that just bobbles back and forth, and it lures him by going, So you've got that looping with a chainsaw at max volume, because there's 4 of them, while people run around the maze screaming as they're being buzzed down to a creepy... It was absolutely awful. Then there's the giant baby. Fuck that giant baby.
That reminds me of... I didn't have too many things that I can recall where I was, like, afraid of a game, but the X-Men game for Sega Genesis, I think it was also on Super Nintendo. Maybe not, though. I'm not sure. But the X-Men game for Sega Genesis, it was very difficult, and I only like a few times did I get to, I want to say it was the 3rd level, and they're just the sprites of the X-Men characters you play as and use as assists, but they're hue shifted to be like white and transparent, and then they like attack you in this like manor house kind of level.
Okay.
And they look like ghosts. And I also always died there immediately because it's like harder than anything I'd beaten previously. And that always scared me.
That's funny. I have a similar thing. GameCube era games started when we started getting the weird and bad stuff that I got to experience as a kid for myself.
Yeah.
Because that's when I started to have money, very little, but I could buy my own games.
The GameCube and like late PS1, early PS2 era games, I feel like were some of the things where low poly 3D stuff was good enough to resemble like real characters and things, but the capacity for data on game discs and things still wasn't high enough, so you'd have these areas that were just really wide open, like empty. Plain area, empty areas, and really like sparse music and stuff.
Right,
and
exactly.
It was very eerie.
I have thought about this for a long time because the GameCube, when I think about it, inherently brings up a sense of creepiness, which is a strange thing from a video game console.
Right.
And one of my favorite games of all time, honestly, is the original Luigi's Mansion, because I don't know if they knew they couldn't, what they were doing to make it creepy, but the combination of the lack of music, the lack of detail, the close-ups of Luigi's hand going for a doorknob, and it's just silent. There are no sound effects. There's no music other than him turning the doorknob. He doesn't say anything. The music cuts out. Seeing yourself in the mirror was weird. That was one of the first times you could do that in a game.
Oh, yeah, and a bunch of games around then did that just because they wanted to show off that they could do that, but it was an eerie effect.
Right, when you're in a room with a ghost that's haunting, you can see your own breath in the mirror. That's how you, like, if you're, when you're a kid, that's one of the reasons you can pick it out, other than that it's dark. And I've thought about it a lot. Even Super Mario Sunshine has some really weird things, like that manta ray. That giant, terrifying manta ray that comes... The orange one that slimes the entire island, and it comes out of the sea. And as a kid, I didn't know how to do all the attacks properly. So, quarter stick. So, that thing scared me because it's just this harbinger of doom that comes out of the ocean. Wind Waker, absolutely. Like, maybe I was just a pussy kid, but scared the hell out of me. Hated the open ocean.
You know what got me... This would have been a little earlier, but on PS1... I think I've mentioned this to you before. Final Fantasy VII has, in the world map, right? The world map, I mean, it's an early Final Fantasy game, so I think that was the first 3D one, so it's very, very empty and sparse already. But in addition to that, there are underwater sections in the world map where you have to be in a submarine. And, I think even today, a lot of people agree that that's creepy in games. But what was way worse than that, especially if you were a kid, was one of the 2 big optional bosses in that game that will kill you like immediately unless you've specifically gotten a loadout and everything to try to kill it is in the underwater world map section.
Ugh.
And just wandering around, and if you see it, you have to like
It's that giant fish thing. You've talked about that, right?
Yeah, it's emerald weapon. It's just this giant green monster thing, and if you it just has to touch you to initiate the battle. So if you see it, you have to like
run.
Yeah, get the hell out of there. And it scared the hell out of me when I was a kid.
It's an interesting thing because something that it's not inherently because it's 3D, because Star Fox for the SNES is 3D and Star Fox 64 is also 3D, but those games are structured like arcade machine games.
Right.
They function very much the same way as a 2D game, which is not a downside. But I remember specifically one of the first games we got for the N64, we loved Indiana Jones growing up, and they have a it's not the Temple of Doom. It's I don't remember what it's called. Something about a clock is what I remember as a kid.
I'm not sure.
And he doesn't have a face from what I remember. So he's got that because it's low poly. What are they going to do?
Joe.
Yeah, Indiana Joe. Yeah. Oh, get ready. But he doesn't have like a good face. He doesn't look superhuman. And that whole game has no music except for like when you find things, there's a flourish. And when you're interacting in cutscenes, there's music. So the entire game is quiet, footsteps, running water, ticking clocks.
Great.
That's it. And we didn't quite have that figured out by GameCube, but we got it for everything after GameCube and the very tail end of GameCube. Even things like Animal Crossing. The music in Animal Crossing is great, but if you ever played that very late at night, which I didn't very often because I was a kid, it's weird and it's a little creepy. And then there's a ghost sometimes that's just like, hey.
My game idea that if I had the means to make a game, I would want to make like a creepy Animal Crossing type game.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really fun.
Something like that like it's a horror game, but it's disguised as this.
And it's not like an entirely horror game. My idea, which I'll go into because I don't care. I'll probably never get around to it. But my idea was like it's an abandoned, carnival or theme park type thing, and that's
interesting.
It's a horror thing. Like whenever you encounter one of the residents or whatever the thing is initially, it's like a horror sequence or a horror level type thing. But then afterward, it's you find out they're friendly.
Oh, okay, I like that.
And then so it's like
a reverse Spooky's House of Jump Scares.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, after the fact, you have to operate it like an Animal Crossing town where you're the manager of this thing or whatever. And it's like, the clown is he's too scary, but he's sad because he, no one like wants to show up for his show. And but then the initial thing is like actually creepy because, I don't know, he's hiding from you or something and you just see him. And then like,
I like that a lot.
I feel like, I don't know. I've been thinking about that because it seems like I know like any kind of game that's a full game is a shit ton of work, but I think it's a relatively feasible idea for an independent project.
Yeah, definitely. I would probably actually really enjoy something like that. It'd be fun. Almost like, especially if it like acknowledged its own like campiness when you get farther along in it. Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think of funny stories. I have a couple of games that I've planned as like SonOfAMitch releases I could talk about. One of them is 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s. What was big at the time? The Matrix was huge at the time.
It sure was, Jerry.
It was gigantic, and they made a game called Enter the Matrix. I had it on GameCube.
Was that the one that had like an entire Matrix movie hidden in the game data?
You spoiled my reveal, but
I'm very sorry.
No, it's okay.
Can, tell the story.
No, it's not hidden in the game data. It is, the cutscenes are live action, but the game is the graphics are just awful at some parts. And so I had this as a kid. My parents knew I liked The Matrix, I guess. I don't remember liking The Matrix, but they knew I liked The Matrix, I guess. And I do. And I'm playing this, and it honestly has some of the best bullet time in any game ever. It is fun. You can run up walls and shoot and do backflips, and you have total control of everything. It's more fun it's one of those games that's more fun with cheats, because it's just fun to have unlimited bullet time and shoot everyone. And the actual game is kind of difficult without it. So I never did that as a kid. I like to use the cheats, but how do you use cheats? As far as I'm aware, there's no Game Shark for the GameCube. I think there was actually. I didn't have it.
Right.
Well, the game comes with built-in cheats. You have to do something called hacking. There were 3 modes. There was in the beginning, not modes, but like 3 options. There was start game, options, hacking. I had never seen that in a game before.
It was like kind of like the Spider-Man PS1 game had a thing where you could, I don't remember what it was called, but you just put in codes and it would like
No,
do
it is much more complicated than that.
Oh.
So you select hacking, and from what I remember, hacking is an entirely different game mode. It runs an emulation, or a pseudo emulation more likely,
Right.
of an old Windows C-DOS box.
Huh.
And you hack it. And you have to enter commands, root commands, exes, and you get through and you hack the Matrix. And it is creepy because there's no music for this part. All you can hear is you typing, which is weird because you're not typing, you're using a GameCube controller.
Right.
And you have to go through, and then it gets to you going through, and that's how you unlock the cheats. But to get one cheat in particular, which is the sword, I don't know why it was so hard to get, but to get the sword, which actually makes the game unbeatable, by the way, because you have to kill a certain enemy a certain way, and when you have the sword, you can no longer kill that one enemy in that way, so you can't get past this part, because the door doesn't open until he's dead. Dumbass piece of garbage, but we'll get to that. So when it takes about an hour to hack the sword into the game. And you have to like look at a video file and look for evidence in it. And you get a call from Neo, and then you have to relay the message from one to another because like you're an operator or something. And it's very vague. Then a timer starts ticking down. And if you don't do it correctly, it wipes like half the data you've made. You have to go and find old programs. It is legitimately like hacking something. It was honestly kind of entertaining as a kid. I had to use a guide by the end of it because it's so cryptic. There's no way. It's like Simon's Quest times 3. But so that was how you unlock cheats. And there's also a mode in there that it's a single player game, but it had 2-player on the back of the box or something. And I'm like, what the hell? And you can hack into the game a special like Street Fighter, like tournament style mode. And 2 of the options are Transformers that are cars in the game, police car and taxi cab.
That's silly.
It was very funny. As a kid, it was a little like, what the hell is this? But it was very funny. That game is an unfinished piece of garbage. It is directed by the Wachowskis themselves, the sisters now, I think. And
siblings.
Yeah, the Wachowski siblings. And it must have been an embezzlement scam from Warner Brothers because this thing is unfinished garbage. The cutscenes are shot just for the game. There are some, I think, that are from the movie, but there are a lot that are just from the game. And you can play as Ghost or Naomi. You cannot play as Neo, which as a kid pissed me off.
Right.
And the cutscenes are different depending on who you play as. So they shot cutscenes, and if you add up the total running time, I believe it's 56 minutes or something like that for the cutscenes, because some of them are pretty long. So there's a Matrix movie, a 4th one, hidden inside this game.
That was the main thing I ever heard about it, was like, there's more to the Matrix canon, and it's
technically,
it's in this terrible video game.
Yes, because to make sure I was correct before I started writing the script for this Son of a Mitch episode about this, because it's like kind of like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I watched the Matrix movies, and none of these scenes are in there at all.
Yeah, no, I think that was how I heard about the game like years later, was this weird thing where there's legitimate live action.
The worst part is the worst part of all that is that it's so hard to distinguish what the hell is going on, because it all takes place from the 2nd to 3rd movie, not the 1st. But the events in the game happen at the same time as the 1st movie. But all the information you need is in the 2nd and 3rd movies because it's about the Merovingian.
I don't know if I ever actually saw the 2nd and 3rd Matrix
Don't even
movies.
bother. The 2nd one's all right. The 3rd one is straight up trash. Israel. I don't even need to get into it.
Oh boy.
It's not even a joke. It's Zion, and they make all these allusions to the Bible. It gets really boring really fast, to be honest.
I think I kind of heard that, and that was probably why I didn't.
But as a kid, I threw all of this away, and I just like this game because it's goofy. It's completely broken. There are cutscenes where the characters start in T-pose and go in and snap to action. There are entire sets for the maps that are untextured.
Oh boy.
There are I remember one in particular in the airport. You are trying to shoot like the wheel off this plane so they can't take your guy into the air and like kill him in midair, and because they're going to torture him and get information out of him or whatever.
Right.
And so you shoot the wheel out of this plane, and like they do a panning shot because the cutscenes that are in game are also directed by the Wachowskis. So they do these crazy panning shots that aren't supposed to be in games because they don't work unless you're Hideo Kojima. And you just see this untextured nightmare you're flying over. The game was completely unreleased. I remember at least 3 explosions where the Naomi is like running past an untextured barrel. It just pops with an explosion, and 2 guys T-pose like over, like it was an animatic for the actual cutscene.
Legendary.
Absolutely terrible. I remember even as a kid thinking, what the fuck is wrong with this piece of shit? And that's hard to do when you're a kid. You'll forgive a lot.
Yeah. You don't think about it usually.
Something I even caught as a kid was the order in which you play the chapters is fucked up in the menu. They put one of the chapters before it actually happens when you play it just through the game.
Huh.
So like chapter 10 in the game is put as chapter 9 and chapter 9 is pushed back to chapter 10. They're not numbered. They're named, but it's the most bizarre thing. My favorite gun in it was this gun that you use. It's like something you use to put out fires. It fires like a gas grenade, and the gas grenade sucks all the oxygen out of the air. So you just shoot it, and everyone in like 100-foot radius around you drowns. And if you have unlimited ammo on, that just keeps happening. So I'm just running through, because you're supposed to be fighting like this 700-man SWAT team through a nuclear power plant. And I'm just running through, flunk, flunk, flunk. And you can do it. I found as a kid so much, it just crashes the game. If you have like 5 of those going, it crashes the game. So you have to space out. You're suffocating everyone. Yeah. That was a fun one.
I'm trying to think of...
I used to have a Dreamcast.
I still have a Dreamcast.
Well, that's good. I wish I didn't sell it, but I sold my Dreamcast and all the games for it for a single copy of Gauntlet Dark Legacy. And to be completely honest, I'm not sure I regret that decision.
Yeah, that's fair.
We got the Dreamcast. My dad was like, Sega makes consoles now. By that point, he was a little behind, admittedly, but I think he knew, but we finally got a Sega console. And I was like, awesome. All the kids at school have Sega consoles, and I'm stuck with shitty old Nintendo. Little did I know, right? And you said you really liked the Dreamcast controllers, but we had a problem getting one that worked.
Yeah, no, it was a peculiar thing, because you were talking about that. And I was saying that it's strange because in every other case that I could think of, when you get a third-party controller, it ends up being inferior to the name brand controllers that the console comes with. But I had a Dreamcast, and I remember like playing most things on it using a third-party controller that we had gotten, and I didn't really have that many problems, like, beyond games being vaguely janky around that time anyway.
Right.
But you were saying like you had a terrible time with the controllers that it came with.
We went through 4 controllers. I remember that's when Funko Land was still around. We went through 4 controllers, and the 4th one worked finally, but that means we only had one that worked for 4 people to play, which sucked.
Yeah.
But I don't think we only had like 6 games. We only had like 6 games, and I don't remember most of them because they weren't very good. Because at this point, my dad doesn't know what to buy anymore because we don't have Mario, we don't have any familiar faces. And I didn't know who Sonic was as a kid.
Yeah.
So I can't help him buy games. So he buys, I swear to God, I only remember 3. I don't know what the other 3 were, but I swear to God, I'm 99% sure we had a copy of Seaman.
Really?
I think so, because I remember having the microphone attachment. I don't know if it came independent of that. Maybe it did, but I know we had a controller with the microphone.
I'm not sure.
And I remember putting on a game, hearing a weird man's voice, and it was very boring. And as a kid, that must have been Seaman.
Yeah. Sounds like... The only reason I'm not sure is I don't know if did that have a North American release?
It's Leonard Nimoy speaks only English, so I'd have to assume, but I don't know.
Huh.
The other 2 that I do remember that I played a lot in that I hated, my favorite one was probably Wacky Racers. That was just fun. We had the Wacky Racers racing game.
I had no idea there was one.
You can't win it, but it was a lot of fun. Something about the Dreamcast was on crack. Every game was at the speed of light, and as a kid, I didn't like it. It was too fast. The other game we had was Cell Damage. Cell Damage is a piece of shit. You can't win it because you just die immediately because it's one-hit deaths pretty much. And I'm going into this game trying to fucking play it like it's a real fucking game, and it's not. It might as well be a Flash game. And I'm just getting, and that's an insult to some Flash games, to be honest. And I just die and die and die. Like this is Dark Souls for the Dreamcast. And I got so mad. This is why we sold the Dreamcast. I got so mad. We had like a futon when I was growing up. We couldn't afford a couch. We had a futon. And it had metal handles on the sides. Uncomfortable metal handles. And I just took the controller and just... until it was just in pieces around the room. And then we just took it back. I was like, I don't want this piece of shit near me anymore. I love Wacky Racers, but I still can't even win that.
I'm trying to think of what games I did have for the Dreamcast. I mean, I had like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 because I knew what Sonic was.
I had Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 on the GameCube.
Yeah, they ported them later.
They sure did.
I I had those. I had Sonic Shuffle, and you want to talk about a bad game.
That is a bad game.
It is an impressively bad game.
Did you play Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, like actually play it?
You mean Sonic Adventure 2?
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah, I played like the entire thing when I was a kid.
I got really confused by it, to be honest. I may have been just a stupid kid, I'm realizing now, but it kind of, the switching characters, the Knuckles stages made me want to pull my teeth out with like a wrench.
The Knuckles and Rouge
but
stages
he's got a fucking cool rap, dude.
were a pain in the ass.
Yeah. No, play a sample of that rap.
The world is mine, nigga, get back. Don't fuck with my...
Anyway, the Knuckles stages sucked. Yeah, the Rouge stages. But I didn't care because the second I found out what a Chow was and I could go to them.
Oh yeah, the Chow Garden was amazing.
Well, I didn't understand it, so I just beat the shit out of the Chows. I would take them to school and they would always fail. So I would take them and I would just beat the shit out of them when I got back to the Chow Garden. And then they do
worse.
Yes, they do, but I didn't understand that. Eventually I tried to like drown them and start over, but that doesn't work. So I would just throw animals at them, and then I noticed they would absorb them, and I like to make them like horrifying mutants. So I would...
Yeah, I mean, that you kind of were supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Nothing ever came of any Chow I made. They were all shit.
So you never unlocked like the Heaven and Hell Chow Gardens and everything? No.
I've never even like seen a video of them, but I know they exist from people talking about them. And I had the guide. I had the Prima guide, and that guide didn't help at all. They didn't know what the hell this game was.
Yeah, I did. I spent a ton of hours playing the Chow Garden thing in that game, and I like unlocked all the stuff and everything. What a waste of time.
Yeah,
but, I mean, you're a kid and it's a game, so I guess it doesn't matter. But
I'm starting to remember some old terrible games we used to have for the GameCube.
You know what's an interesting thing about Sonic Adventure 2 that I've never heard anyone talk about is...
the high-pitched noise when Tails plays and he aims and it goes...
No, I wouldn't call that interesting so much as the worst thing.
It is a very bad choice.
Yeah, just an awful, terrible circumstance. But no, Sonic Adventure 2, if you like play through the entire game, right? You have like the good story and the evil story. You unlock like the end game thing where you play as like Super Sonic and Super Shadow or whatever. The boss of that, I don't think I've ever heard anyone allude to this. The boss of that mode is like a gigantic cyber-organic space dinosaur thing.
Don't remember. Probably never got that far.
It's bizarre. And I don't think I had thought about that since I was a child until right now.
It's really just a space dinosaur?
It's like, so there's like this really excessively in-depth story, you know, about how Shadow was like created by a scientist and everything.
It's like they go to like David Lynch to write their damn story. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they go to...
Oh, I remember the station blowing up.
Right, yeah, there's a spaceship, like, and you go and you find out, because Sonic Adventure 1 had Chaos, that's like this ancient fucking Mayan god thing.
Yeah.
And they were creating like genetically engineered organisms from Chaos, and I think Shadow's one of those or something. And then the final boss is this gigantic, like, genetically engineered dinosaur cyber-organic thing that you fight in space as Super Sonic, and it's wildly incongruent to the rest of the Sonic franchise in tone.
Is it?
I guess not for...
Not after that game?
Not after...
06?
No, well... They've really gone off the rails since. I was going to say, since like Sonic Adventure, they've been really strange.
Well, what an adventure.
Yeah. I love those games as a kid. I think it's one of the cases, I would say, where, like, I mean, obviously the Tails thing was nightmarish, but I think it's part of it is a case where you go back and play games from around then,
I remember,
and they're platformers, so you, at the time, those controls felt current. But now you go back, and the type of game it is has been
it's been improved upon.
It's been
so
improved
many
upon
times
to such a degree that it feels terrible to play now.
One, I was just the Tails thing made me remember. I have vivid memories of my dad screaming at me to turn that off because he's just hearing this noise in the other room.
Yeah.
And two, me and my friend Will used to play Graw when it first came out. Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter all the time. It was the shooter game when it came out, besides like Halo. And we would play we would do these advanced scenarios. We would make it harder than the hardest difficulty. We'd like, there's one where like there's a crash helicopter you start in, and so we're like, okay, let's be crash helicopter pilots. They only have as standard these like shitty sub-automatic Uzi things and a pistol, and then we got to fight off 80 terrorists or whatever, and we would do it. And we went back to play that I don't know how many years ago for old time's sake. What a piece of shit! I cannot believe tank controls were at one point the standard for shooters.
Yeah.
GoldenEye.
It's pretty crazy to think about. Have you ever heard of the game Air Guys?
What the no.
So this is a...
Oh, I thought like AIRGUYS, like Air Guys.
No, thankfully not.
This looks terrible.
It's actually pretty good, but it's bizarre. It was back when Squaresoft was just Squaresoft and not Square Enix. They made this game it's on the PS1. It's an arena fighting game, like wrestling controls. I don't know if you remember when those were kind of a thing.
My cousin liked wrestling games a lot.
And it played pretty good at the time, but it's very, very strange because it was developed by Squaresoft, and it has characters from Final Fantasy in it.
Yeah, there's Cloud on the cover.
Yeah, but it also has, I believe, the like main original character from it is canonically a member of the Mishimas from Tekken. So it's technically a very strange crossover game. And that's not the weirdest part. Aside from the fighting game part of it, there's...
Ken Mishima, God Hand.
Yeah. It's just...
Why?
I don't know. Aside from the fighting game part, there is an entirely separate additional game on that disc. And it just...
What?
Hazard a guess what kind of game the other one is.
Doesn't like a top-down shooter?
No, it's a hardcore like permadeath dungeon crawler.
Like a Dark Souls?
But way worse. Like you have there's only one dungeon and it's like extremely long. It's permadeath and you have to eat. Your character has to eat to stay alive. You can pick...
That doesn't sound fun in the slightest.
It's not fun at all. You can pick from 2 characters who are unlockable in the fighting game that are like archaeologists or something, but you're led to believe because of how hard the game is and the fact that there's these 2 characters that one of them can die and you can play as the other one, so you technically have 2 chances. That is not accurate. I never got far enough in it to witness this, but years later I read about how the very final boss of that game there's like two stages to it, and it's guaranteed to kill one character. So you have to get to it.
Oh my god!
With both characters still alive, and then one dies, and then you kill it with the other one, and it's outrageous.
What was it called?
I don't remember. It might still just be Air Guys, but with a different subtitle or something.
There was a brief period of time, like 1998 to 2001, where they were just packaging games together.
It's really strange. They reused a lot of the assets, you can tell. Like, Why wouldn't they? But mostly it's different because they're completely different genres of game.
I got 3 games from that era that I can remember that I want to talk about. GameCube-esque. The first one is Dr. Nito? I
never heard of it.
It was I don't know if it was a launch title, some piece of shit. I don't even remember the premise. You had to like use these chemicals. I didn't get past the first flipping 5 minutes of this game. You're supposed to like use this, you have like a science gun and you suck a thing up in the science gun and then you shoot like we just mentioned or whatever. So like you shoot yellow electricity or red fire or whatever. I don't remember it working and I could be entirely wrong. You had to collect brains, I think. Piece of garbage. That game like infuriated me as a kid. The second one I don't remember the name of, and I'm hoping someone out there does, future me. It was a game designed to probably rip off of Ghostbusters.
Okay.
You're like a part of this ghost catching thing. I think you had guns, and it was kind of like Resident Evil. And the only level I remember is... It was bad. Maybe I even rented it. This was that time, It was bad. And all I remember is you're in this bayou murdering hillbillies who are also ghosts, I think. And then you get to this big old lake and there's an alligator and it barfs up a dead kid that is still inside of it. And that's the target.
Oh.
And it was just unpleasant. The entire game was unpleasant. That game was so weird. I must have been... only about 12 years old or something. I started with my friend Kyle, just for that game, a game review website called Gamazam. I actually got all the way through making a website, because back in the day you could just make anything.
Right.
And I put a review up for it. It even had a store that had listings that I hope was shut down, because I remember getting emails in the website about people being like, "Where's my money?" or "Where's my game? I bought this thing."
You told me about that.
Yeah, and I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, I don't even know the password to get back in and turn that website off. So I hope this resolves itself. Yeah, nothing ever came of it. That's how bad that game was. I wish I could remember it more. It was an anomaly of garbage.
That reminded me of there was a game I remember playing at a friend of mine's house, which I think it was on PS1, and it was a horror game like akin to Silent Hill, but I don't think it was Silent Hill, and I've never been able to figure out exactly what game it was.
Did you play as Ichabod Crane?
I don't think so.
Did you have to light up rooms?
No.
Oh, okay.
The main thing I remember from it is like super dark outdoor like city environment, which is why I think of Silent Hill. But then like we stopped playing it because we got attacked by like a more serious, spooky like man bat from Batman type creature.
Awful, like a Mothman.
Yeah, and we were like, oh, we're 8 or 9, and this is way too much.
Did you ever sometimes just turn the game off, like it scared you that much? Have you gotten to that point as a kid?
Probably. I don't remember specifically. But
you know what used to do that for me? The Goosebumps intro. Because the dog, when its eyes changed, I was like, and I just was like, I hated it. I didn't like that the dog was
perverted innocence.
I didn't like that the dog was getting hurt, so I would just like turn it off.
Implicitly.
Yeah, that's what my brain was, telling me. Yeah. I have a bad video game story. I just got an Xbox 360, my first big boy console, because the whole family got a GameCube, so I didn't get to play it that much.
Right.
And I got my own Xbox 360, and I'm like 15 at this point, very fat, very old. And I had
old?
For me, to have an Xbox 360, I feel like, as a new gift. And I get a couple games, one of them being Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, because my parents recognize it. What a fucking sham.
Oh, yeah.
And but one of the ones I get is Dead Rising. Okay. And they were really hesitant about giving me that. There were a lot of concessions. I didn't get teen games till I was 14.
That is pretty nuts. Dead Rising, but Dead Rising I can see, especially because, I don't know if you remember, they had to put a disclaimer on the Dead Rising box that it was not affiliated with Dawn of the Dead because of how similar the premises were.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I don't remember that from the time, but I've seen the game since and been like, oh, yeah, wow. So I had played maybe 20 seconds of it. I got through the first thing. I've covered wars, like that's all I'd gotten through. Didn't even really move around yet. I saw the people get eaten in the mall in the beginning. That's it. My friend Brandon calls me up. He's like, yo, dog, I heard you got an Xbox for your birthday. I'm like, yeah. Oh, you owe me, Brandon. He's like, come on over. Let's play it at my place. Bring the console, whatever. We can you can hang out all night, whatever, with popcorn, whatever. He had an amazing sound system in his basement. Huge, like biggest TV you could get at the time, 70 inches or whatever. Massive 5.1 surround sound, which, this is 2003. This is like amazing.
Right.
So we go down and we won't bother anyone. Because
must have been like 2006.
Something like that. Yeah. And we won't bother anyone is the big thing. Like So I go over and he didn't have an Xbox or anything. He was a PC gamer, and I was up until that point too, really.
Okay. And
we're putting it in, we're playing it a bit. We get like another 5 minutes in, about the same point, and he goes, "Oh man, can this thing go on its side?" And I'm like, "No way!" And he just picks it up when it's on. And it goes, the disc goes.
Yeah, they sure did.
And you could smell the plastic burning because it was like hitting the laser.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And I take it out, and the disc has melted in the center a little bit. And it's like scarred and charred black with this massive scrapey, melty shit around it now. And Brandon just looks at me and leaves. He leaves the room to go up to his room, and I don't know what to do anymore. And I don't remember what happened after that. Brandon still owes me $60 for that game to this day.
Yeah, what a clown.
Yeah. God damn.
That happens. I mean, I think the only game my Xbox 368 was Red Dead Redemption, which I subsequently... That's an interesting story. I think I can tell this and have no blowback on me. It's been long enough. My 360, right?
Yeah.
I had it for a good long while, but they were infamous, red ring and everything. They died a lot.
Mine red ringed twice, and they eventually just sent me back in Elite, and that never red ringed.
Yeah, well, so what happened with mine, I had Red Dead Redemption was not new it had been out for a while, but it wasn't like, old,
Yeah.
So I got Red Dead Redemption on the 360, and my friend Matt Blevins was very he really liked the game too, so he like came over and we were gonna play it. And I think we didn't want to wait for the update, and back then it was when you could just be like no, and it wouldn't bother.
No, now it's a yes or remind me later.
Yeah, basically. I think you could still now it's like I think you can still do that, but games are like barely finished when they're released. So if you don't want to update, you're not going to have a good time. But anyway, I started the game, and that actually, Red Dead was one of the first games I remember that was like that. There were a ton of bugs when it first came out, and they patched it and fixed it. But so we started it up, and we're doing the beginning missions and everything. Or like literally the very first mission, it gets through the cutscene, and we start getting bugs and things, and I'm like, shit, okay, whatever. So we restart it, and we keep getting like increasingly severe, ridiculous bugs. Like I think we've had a running joke ever since of return to Jake, because that's what it says if you go too far or get off your horse in the opening mission when you're supposed to be following this guy Jake. And we would get jettisoned off the horse and through the map.
Like physics just punched. That's funny.
And then I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. So I shut off the 360 and take out the disc, and it has like carved a circle into the disc. Not as severe as yours where it was burnt, but just like apparently not bad enough to completely stop the game from playing, but just gouged like a circle into the disc.
Yeah, no, I could play Dead Rising to that point. That exact point where he picked up the Xbox. I know exactly what it is. It's right after you talk to everyone and take your first steps into the mall after you get the safe house and the ventilation system.
Yeah, so that was man, what a great console. The Xbox 360.
It was a weird time because it wasn't cutting edge in the slightest, but the PS3 overheated too, and they were competing to see who could cram the most shit into their dumbass system. They don't even do that anymore. Like, they don't have to. It all works now.
Well, now it's the type of thing too where
just put a 1080 in it. It works.
I was gonna say, now it's the type of thing too where it behooves them in some ways to not implement the most cutting edge technology, because they can do this like PS4 Pro shit and all that kind of thing.
Let me just say, if you want to find out if your kid's gay or not, give him a copy of Destroy All Humans and see how often they use the anal probe. That's all I'm saying.
That's pretty good. Man.
That may or may not come from personal experience.
I was, on that note, I played Fable 2. It was the only Fable game I played, and it could have been worse.
It could have been Fable 3.
The sex scene in that was literally just a fade to black, and your spouse makes like a quip. No, it's not even that. They make like a joke.
Do they?
Yeah, they make a joke.
You can fuck a kid?
That's not true.
It is absolutely true. No joke. It's the same fade to black. I'm not saying it's any different, right? There's a way to romance kids, and it'll take you to a place out of eyesight of everyone. Then you can fade to black. I saw my cousin do it.
Are you sure it wasn't just a short female
I don't
character?
know. There was no. No, it wasn't a short character. It was a kid. I don't know if it's implied it's supposed to be sex. That's what I remember seeing as a 15, 16-year-old.
I just feel like I'd remember that because I played the shit out of that game.
It's not something.
And I would have tried something like
that. Well, who didn't? What if that co-op was really cool for the time, because a lot of games were already phasing out co-op.
Yeah.
So that was one of the ones that kept it in, and Fable is a fun setting to do that in. I don't know if I like one better than two. I don't know if I really like any of those games.
I always heard one was the best.
One's probably the best out of the three, but that's a weird thing with Fable because they're built on an amalgam of lies. So you really have to... Because I played Fable 1 and I never heard anything about it. I just knew it was fun.
Yeah.
So I played it and it was fun. I didn't know I was supposed to be promised the world, apparently.
I think I may have told you that story too, how the way I found Fallout was... And I love Fallout except for 4, because now it's terrible.
4's the best one, clearly.
Yeah, great. But I really like Fallout, and the first one I played was 3, and I found Fallout 3 because I got Fable 2 that I had been really excited for, because I'd heard from my friends and stuff that it was really good. But then my Fable 2 copy of the disc was just faulty. That wasn't when
used
my
to be a thing
360
too,
died. Yeah. And I had to take it back, and I was really bummed out, and they didn't have, like, another copy. So I was like, what else is good? And I got Fallout 3. And Fallout 3 was fantastic.
Something similar happened to me. It wasn't the exact same thing, but it was like, oh, I don't have this game. It's like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. I hate it. What's out right now? What can I trade it in for? Because this is back when they would let you do trade-ins, but if you didn't, they gave you a nickel. And they still kind of do that anyway.
Yeah.
But like, so you could get pretty much a whole new game if you got it used. And they did do a pretty good job of making sure that it would work and everything. And so, fuck GameStop though. And so I did the exact same thing. They were like, the guy was like, look, I know you never heard of it. Fallout 3, just here. Give it a try. You don't like it, you can bring it back on me, whatever. We'll do another trade. I put in Fallout 3 into my Xbox 360. And then I woke up and I was 16. And a whole year had gone by.
Yeah, that was pretty much the same thing with me. I think I was like, I'm not sure of the exact year. I want to say I was a junior in high school, or it was like from end of sophomore year to partway through my junior year. I don't remember doing anything except playing the hell out of Fallout 3.
Yeah, I don't remember when it was.
I even remember being like in classes and stuff and being like, oh man, the DLC comes out today. I know what I'm doing for the next like 18 hours.
More than that, I used to be a really good student, and then I turned about 14, 15, and I stopped caring really fast. Like I got sophomore syndrome, or I got senior syndrome freshman year.
Senioritis,
yeah.
I had the exact same thing, but it was because I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I don't know if this is the case with all Catholic schools. I imagine it's more of a thing just with private schools in general, because for kids, they have to actually still give a payoff, unlike colleges. But Catholic school was so much harder than public school that it wasn't until like doing AP courses in my junior and senior year, which meant, so that's college courses at that point. That was like, it wasn't between my freshman year to my junior year, nothing felt as challenging as what I had done in 8th grade until I got to the AP courses.
Wow.
So I checked out because it was like, I can literally just do this like during study hall or whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but I never had a hard time in school, and I was in AP courses for most of it until I really stopped caring and just dropped down to normal courses.
Yeah, and I don't even mean like, it was like incredibly difficult. I just mean like I had to actually try.
Side note, the public school system failed me so bad. When I was in 6th grade, they did the competency test, and I passed math so well that they put me in advanced AP honors math. AP honors math is trigonometry, which is after algebra, I believe. I never took algebra.
Yeah.
They never taught me algebra. So I'm just winging it for like 4 years until it's like it's the beginning of sophomore year, and I get a teacher who actually gives a shit in math. And we're going through, and this is pre-calculus now, and I cannot do pre-calculus without algebra. So I'm just sitting there, and I got through trigonometry just fine, because you don't technically need it, if you know how to recognize patterns really well. And so I got through just fine, and the other ones, or maybe they guilty passed me or something, but I had pretty good grades, and I get to this class and I just can't do anything. And I remember the teacher's like, okay, I'll give you another chance. Come into my office, you take the test there, whatever. And he gives me the test, and like 45 minutes go by, and he's like, all right, you got about a half test. How you doing? And I'm looking at the second problem, and I look up at him, and I don't say anything. And he's like, they really didn't teach you, did they? And I'm just like, no. And then they put me in retard classes in math for the rest of that. So when I finally got to engineering college, I had to teach myself calculus.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, goddamn.
Bada bing.
Anyway, Goof Troop, one of my favorite games to play with my dad.
I forget how I got on that topic, but yeah, I don't know. No, I was, because we were talking about like Fallout and...
Oh, yeah.
So like I wasn't doing anything in high school until my senior year, basically. And then mostly I wasn't doing anything except I did wrestling. So I had to actually take time to do work if I was going to actually turn in homework.
I didn't do shit. I got lucky. My parents were smart. They made me take gym over the summer, so I had an extra elective period. And instead of taking an elective, because fuck that, I took study hall, which is basically sleep. So all 4 years I took study hall in the morning. So what I would do is I would get home, do nothing, play video games, whatever, and I would just bring the homework to school the next day and do it during study hall and then pass out, because I'd stayed up till 4 a.m. or whatever, and then go through the school and go through school. High school was so easy, unbelievably easy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good game story. You ever play the Futurama game?
No.
There's not that many copies or something, so it's super expensive now, and it isn't very fun because the mechanics suck. But it's hilarious because it's actually written by the same people.
Huh.
I bet if you went and looked back at something like Destroy All Humans, which at the time I'm sure I thought was hilarious, would make me like cringe so hard my head comes out my ass.
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
Especially since humor's changed since then too.
I wish I could remember more about Astyanax.
It sucks. That's the only thing you have to remember about it. One, don't use the axe. It's the shittiest weapon.
No, I don't mean like the game part. I mean like the outlandish intro thing.
His name? Astyanax!
Don't they say it's Greek?
I don't know. I know there's a dragon, and I know how the song goes.
But no, I'm like, when we watch the intro for it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it like a Japanese high school student, and then it's like, his name is Astyanax, which I think they say he's Greek, and it's supposed to sound Greek, and he gets transported to a fantasy realm
because he sleeps or something. Yeah, he's daydreaming,
and that's Astyanax.
Yeah, because the fairy that he wants to save fuck is the girl in school he wants to save fuck.
Yeah. And no, I'm trying to think of like more games like that because those are very funny.
Perfect. I have a ton. Back when I first realized I really like retro games, and I only had a few to choose from because my parents bought really good ones.
Retro games means men.
Yeah. I started buying little bundles of games, and I got very lucky and got some really good bundles and got some really good games out of it, but I also got some absolute pieces of shit.
I would imagine. One
of them being, and I think James Rolfe has done a video on this, the Terminator game for the NES. Or is it the Predator one? They're all bad.
Finish your thing, but that reminded me of something.
I think it's the Predator one where in the game, you can get stuck so easily. There's a kill yourself and start over button. You have to, it is unbearable, that game. I think it's Predator for the Nintendo. It is so outrageously terrible.
I had a game for Sega Genesis that was, do you remember the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie?
Yeah. They made a game of that?
They made a game of that, and it's as bad as you'd expect. It's a, like, side-scrolling third-person shooter thing, but I'm pretty sure I could never figure out how to do it, but I'm pretty sure there's a way you're supposed to be able to like arrest the enemies in it if you like stun them or something, but I could never figure out
kill them.
How to do it, so I always would just shoot like which is more accurate to the actual Judge Dredd.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't know why you would be able to arrest anyone in a Judge Dredd game. Did you ever play Bounty Hunter when it came out for the GameCube?
No.
Jango Fett?
I didn't have a GameCube.
Oh, okay. Really fun game about Jango Fett being a bounty hunter.
I remember hearing about that game.
You have to use this filter to find targets, and some of them are only worth money dead, and I didn't get that as a kid, so I would get mad at them and then punch them off a building, and then I would get the money or whatever. Bounty Hunter was a really good game.
That reminded me, you know what's interesting now to consider? I would assume this is the same thing with the Bounty Hunter game, but Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, and I would have to assume the other Jedi Knight games as well, had a vastly better story than any of the Star Wars movies aside from the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did KOTOR.
Oh, yeah. Well, but KOTOR is, like, completely separate.
The better version of Mass Effect.
Yeah. No. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, hands down. Yeah.
Star Wars, like, the Jedi Knight games, I'm pretty sure all take place after the original trilogy, so they've been replaced now in the canon by the new movies or whatever.
Yeah.
But the story is so much better. Like, Luke Skywalker, instead of becoming a hobo who sucks on alien titties, that's just what really happens.
That is what he does.
Instead of that, he, becomes a Jedi Master and starts a school for Jedi, and then you get to see all these dope-ass adventures where they're like, we have to teach the new Padawans, but we're really cool, so we send them to fight a bunch of Sith in temples and shit.
Yeah, they do that in the new movies, but you get to only the boring parts where no one has fun.
Yeah, I guess.
Because those ones were based off the books, which are actually really good. And then they stole the good things from the books for the Force Awakens, which is why Force Awakens is passable. And then The Last Jedi, they just kind of used the books as toilet paper and inserted...
Still haven't seen The Last Jedi. It's going to be bad.
It's really not a good idea.
You can't stop me.
Whatever. Have fun with the evil white man casino.
I will.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. I had a game at the front of my brain. And
sorry.
Just like my heterosexuality got forced out.
But by vaccines.
Terrible game stories.
I had a Speed Racer game for PS1, I think. It was very bizarre because you could use all of the tools that the Mach 5 had.
Ooh, I've seen my cousin play that, I think.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
I was too young to understand how to do anything in it, but like the shortcuts and stuff for the stages are like, there's a patch of woods, push out your saw blades and drive through it.
Yeah. There's a patch of people. Push out your saw blades.
No, they're like, I guess maybe it's intuitive. It's a little intuitive if you are a big Speed Racer fan, but like if you're a normal person, you're not like, oh, I should drive directly into the woods with my car.
I remember what I want to talk about. So when I was growing up, I had a bad run of luck after the N64 with getting a ton of Acclaim games. Now, before the N64, Acclaim not so bad. Some mediocre shit like Porky Pig's Haunted Holiday, but Turok, good sample. But see, they did the thing EA is doing now where they would they find a studio, they invest in it, they get lucky, 9 out of 10 of them fail, but one of them does really well, and then they cannibalize the hell out of it and make a bunch of money off the property, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you are familiar with AVGN too much, but he hates LJN, the character, because LJN makes all these shitty Nintendo games, but he's missing the mark, and I figured this out. LJN got bought out by Acclaim, and Acclaim was doing the same thing, but LJN they used for their movie licenses.
I just keep thinking of Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah. So...
Same guy.
Same thing. So, Acclaim near the end of its life got real desperate, and I own in my collection, I think... I say collection like a man who collects dog turds would say collection, but I think I have 2 copies, I know I have one, of BMX XXX. My fucking god, the travesty of shit that is this game. It looks like someone ported an N64 game over to the GameCube. And now I didn't have this as a kid. I sought this out later as a man. And there's a funny story about its development. It was originally just going to be like a Tony Hawk BMX game. And after the studio finished putting in the physics for the BMX part, they brought in another guy, another studio, not just one guy, another studio to put in all the porn shit. And
it was porn.
It absolutely was porn. It was completely uncensored on the GameCube.
Oh.
And for some reason, Sony caught it and GameCube didn't, or Nintendo didn't. So it's like uncensored on the GameCube, or other way around, something like that. One of them is completely uncensored. And
dude, are you excited for Steam porn?
There's already been Steam porn. Are you kidding me? What is Dream Daddy? If not,
I mean, like it's gonna be,
You excited for Steam Nazis?
High impact now. Nazis, they might. Yeah. Anyway, continue your story.
High impact pornography. Your wiener will never be the same. They put this in, and so Acclaim brings in these other guys to make it a porn game. The other guys see it released, and they're like, "What the fuck? We don't want our name on this anymore. This was nowhere in our contract." So they sue him and won, and that's why Acclaim went out of business. Dirty practices like that. The thing, though, is, and here's the weird thing, I don't remember Gregory Fischbach, the guy who ran Acclaim.
Phil Fish, got it.
No. Because he's better than Phil Fish. Because even though his company had really scummy practices, he's the one who organized the Don't Ban Video Games Congress. They're not causing school shootings. And he gave a big speech in front of Congress, and he's one of the people who saved video games. Huh. So I got to give him some credit. His company was trash, and he should have never made it. But thank you for not shitting directly into the mouths of everyone who you were taking thousands of dollars from.
That's all you can ask.
Yeah, really. Apple, every company now, Google.
Yeah.
Do you remember when, funny game stories, this is barely a game. Do you remember when browser games were huge because Facebook popularized them?
Yes.
I had a Farmville for a while.
They still kind of are. Isn't Clash of Clans a
They are
browser
absolutely
game?
massive, but only simpletons and retards play them now. So, and middle-aged housewives. So,
and middle-aged retards.
And, well, they don't make it that long. So, there was like Mafia Wars, which I liked, and then I didn't like. And then there was one game where a guy threatened to kill me because I had more spaceships than him. And
EVE Online.
No, but I played that too. That game sucks. Now, I liked it, but it sucks now, in my opinion. Whatever. Feel free to rail me, everyone listening. I hope you like ice mining for 700 hours, only to lose out to combat expansions. So there were all these games coming out. Far about all that. One of them was Hobo Street Fighter or something like that. I don't know how I found this. Me and I think Brandon and Doug, friends from earlier, found it, I think. And we were like, hell yeah. So I made a hobo named Shitstick. And
but you made your character in it?
You make a character in it. Yeah, he's like an RPG. Like that old one's RPG.
So it's called Hobo Street Fighter, and it's
something like that.
An RPG and not a fighting game.
Yes. And you go around murdering other homeless people. And I mean murdering, like you could die in it. And I didn't die. I maybe I did at some point, but the first guy I attacked, like you had to be present to defend yourself or something. You couldn't just let your character defend. It was really bad at it. So or I found a glitch or something really fast. So not surprising. So I had like a stick as a starting weapon, and then I found like the highest level guy I could to try and kill myself, but I beat him, and he had like a combat knife and an AR-15. So Shitstick was a fucking force to be reckoned with. I killed easily 600 other homeless people before I just got bored and stopped playing.
You eliminated the homeless problem.
No, it was really bad. There were easily millions of homeless people. I was doing my part.
I don't know. That's insane. Why? How does that game exist?
It doesn't anymore, thankfully.
It was
shit.
ET'd it.
Do you remember the old Newgrounds game, like RPG, stick RPG?
Vaguely,
It was less put together than that piece of shit. And I only say piece of shit looking back on it now. I'm sure when I was a kid back then, I loved it.
Yeah. You remember, did you ever play the Flash games on CartoonNetwork.com back then?
You mean addictinggames.com? You're fucking right, I did. Yes, actually, I did play. I did play a lot of them. There were some really good ones.
I was about to say, there were...
remember the Toonami Bob infiltration one where you play as a Diablo-esque mech?
Me and Joey have talked at length about the Cartoon Beach Summer Resort series, which I don't know how much you remember them. They were like the very common pseudo RPG like adventure game back. It was adventure game. It was like similar to point and click adventure games back then, where you had to. You go to one guy, he wants a thing. You go to another guy to get it, but he'll trade you for a thing, so it's this long chain. But the thing that was hilarious about those in retrospect is that they were clearly made by, like, some coder / game designer who, you know, got this gig with CartoonNetwork.com, but had no idea about, like, 75% of the shows.
Yeah.
Because you would have things like Double D would be like, whoa, dude, I'm gonna get my skateboard back. And you're like, as a kid, I'm like, what? Double D wouldn't say that.
No. I remember specifically the Ed and Eddie one was totally fucked up.
Most of them were. They would say like bizarre things that were, I'm pretty sure, because like Double D, because he has the hat, I think were just based on what the character looked like. And he was like, I guess that's this guy.
Yeah, no, I remember because Ed wasn't stupid.
Yeah.
They didn't make him stupid. He was just like, oh, good sir, could you please? And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's tons of things like that.
There were a bunch. I remember, I love those. You know, those are still up, but you have to know the URL to get to them, but you can still get to them.
I think you can get to them through that site that like does snapshots.
You can do that too, but But that'll only bring you to snapshots of it. So if you take that URL and then I don't remember exactly how. You can also see all the old Cartoon Network logos and shit because they still have all that stuff up online.
They had a bunch of strangely good games on that site. Oh, I was gonna say, let's move on. I wanna have a section every episode. Do you have any stories that are either supernatural or vaguely spooky? I mean, I think you're in the same boat as me where you don't really believe in anything like that, but like, you know, anything from when you were a kid.
Yes. I don't know if I've ever shared it with anyone, but I'm happy to. It's not, it might be considered traumatic. I don't know how much it's affected my life, but we'll find out right now. So when I was a kid, we lived in a really bad neighborhood and I spent a lot of time inside. And I didn't have any friends, one, because I'm sure I was shitty, but two, because I was one of the only white kids in school. There is racism the other way. I got the shit kicked out of me. I learned to fight before I was in 4th grade. I spent a lot of time inside and learned computers. Joke's on you, fuckers! I see your Facebook feeds, they're pathetic! And because of that, I would get, I think, stir crazy. And by the end of the day, sometimes I had a couple panic attacks as a kid, but nothing crazy. And I don't think that's too uncommon either. Just a few, like 4 for my whole childhood, you know?
It's probably fine,
but I remember this a couple times. This is the one I remember the most. I used to see dark shadow men, like just silhouettes of people. And they would be, because my room was at the end of the hallway. And it was like a long 40-foot hallway into a larger room. So you could see it open up, but you could only get a glimpse of it on either side. And it was just light enough out to see down the hallway. And my bed stared directly down the hallway.
The worst.
It is. The worst part is if you turn your back to it, now you've turned your back to it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't as a kid allowed to close my door. So I would stare down this hallway, and it didn't happen immediately or every time, but I would start to see these shadow men, and this is the one I remember the most. I remember they never got too close. They would always be farther out, and it was not sleep paralysis or anything like that. I know what that is now, and it was not something like that. I remember it was close to Christmas. It wasn't it was like December 3rd, but I'm a dumbass kid, so all I know is...
Well, yeah, when you're a kid, as soon as it's December, you're like...
Soon Christmas, soon presents. So I saw them taking my Christmas presents. And the reason I remember this one is because the Christmas presents had color and they didn't. So it really looked like the objects were moving. So I get out of my bed and I'm terrified, but I want to know what's going on. So I go to the edge of the stairs and look down, and now I'm close enough to see, definitive shapes and a little bit of color. There's no one there. There are no Christmas presents. It's December 5th.
Right.
The tree isn't even set up yet. And that scared me so much because I didn't know what I was standing. That scared me so much. I tried to yell for Mom, and that was one of the times in my life I couldn't yell. I was so terrified because something had just happened to me that I couldn't explain.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even yell out the words. It took like 6 attempts before I could finally say it. And that is probably the closest thing I've had to a legitimate supernatural experience besides a dream I had, but I can get into that later if you want, or now or whatever. I don't care.
If you want.
Yeah.
I can follow up a little bit on that if you want.
Sure.
Because I was gonna mention I used to be much more afraid of like that kind of thing when I was a kid too. I can't imagine having the door to my room look down a hallway because I didn't even like just my room itself.
You notice I always close the door to my room, like not even like just all the time. Like if maybe you didn't notice it, I will always have the door closed if I'm going to sleep. No, there's not a goddamn chance I leave the door open anymore, hallway or not.
I do the same thing, but I preferred like an enclosed space in general. But I was going to say I haven't had anything that I could think of that I would consider remotely supernatural as far as an experience, but when I was a kid especially, I didn't like the dark when I was littler, but I kind of grew out of that. But even after that, I can recall very specifically, and I don't know how I got tinnitus, but I've had tinnitus like as long as I can remember.
It just happens sometimes. I have it too a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but it really, really freaked me out when I was a kid because especially when you're lying down and trying to get to sleep and you can't sleep and you start to hear like a ringing in your ears and it gets really loud and you don't know what's going on, but you just know that it happens recurrently and more often at night when you're lying down with your eyes closed trying to sleep. And I kind of knew this wasn't really the case, but like I couldn't help thinking as a kid where you're kind of afraid of everything, like there's something in my room and that's why I'm hearing this noise, but I can't like look at it because it's dark and also
I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. And that like really, really bothered me until I got older and had actual things to worry about.
Yeah. The thing is too, you got to understand, we lived in a real shit neighborhood when I was growing up. We were, I wouldn't say, I guess, dirt poor, but we were very poor, lower class. Not for my parents' lack of trying. They worked their asses off and they brought us out of it. But my dad was gone a lot working and he would go on trips so he could make more money. My mom worked, and then when she didn't work, she got her master's degree. And so I was kind of also raised by my grandparents or whatever. And I remember incidents. I mean, I had an absolutely terrible childhood. I don't want to get too into it, or I will. I don't care, but no one wants to hear it. But I mean, it was entirely possible we were robbed. Not that actually happened. It didn't, but it was entirely possible. Going through my brain as a possibility that there were just men robbing our house.
Yeah,
because there were incidents where people would knock on our door, and I found out later that they would knock on our door asking for help, and they'd have a gun behind their back or something, and they're gonna come in the house and do whatever. And my parents were smart enough to never open the door to call the police. 911, I've been shot, I need help. But we had a window we could look out of that they couldn't see, and you would see them with a gun behind their back.
Yeah.
Trying to get into our fucking house. So that's what my life was growing up. So this fucking terror would like amalgamate as that. And so like that's I think what scared me the most is that I didn't know if there had just been people there and I was in danger.
Right.
Or if it was supernatural. I didn't really experience a lot of supernatural stuff growing up that was really negative. In fact, if anything, I experienced a lot of what I would call positive supernatural, like guardian angel shit, where I either should have died or like my career should have just ended, or horrible things should have happened, and they didn't. And it really felt like someone was looking out for me. That's the other example. The day after my grandfather passed, who I was very close to on my mother's side, I had a dream, and it was a very good. I don't usually dream about real places, which is what throws me off. It was a very accurate representation of my grandmother's house. I could see it right now. It's perfect. But instead of where the microwave was, he was sitting on the counter. I don't know why. And he just passed, and we just talked for 60 minutes, and everything he said felt exactly like how he would have said it.
Right.
And at the time, I was really, really trying to become a police officer because he was a police officer. I didn't want to go into engineering college because I was afraid of it. So I figured this would be a good compromise with my parents, but I didn't want to really be a police officer. I was kind of taking up his mantle after he died. And the reason I did not continue to pursue that is because he's told me I did not need to, that I didn't have to do that for him as he had gone on. He knew I could do more and better things with my brain than go on and be a police officer than he could. And it was very humbling.
That's interesting. I don't know the stories well enough to relay them, but I know like my brothers and I think my mom have similar things like that.
Yeah.
Our family are all old.
Yeah. When I was, a little earlier before my grandfather died, my grandmother died, and she taught me piano. And we had a special relationship because I learned very quickly how to play piano, and she also taught me how to play golf. And here's the really weird thing. Maybe I had sensed it as a kid, but my parents did not immediately tell me she died, I don't think. I don't remember them telling me that. But that night, very soon after, we had a piano, and it played itself. I swear, just a little. I'm willing to write it up to hallucination or whatever. I'm not that, attached to it that I can't let it go. But I don't know, like I've had those experiences maybe 10 times total, and they've always been, and because of that, I didn't quit playing the piano. And my stills rusted to some degree because I didn't play it as much, but I didn't quit playing the piano. I wanted to throw it away. I was angry that, that my piano teacher, my grandmother, was gone. The thing in Indiana where just everything lined up exactly right. I don't know. It's very strange.
Something you said reminded me. This was a really bizarre thing, and it was of no consequence, so I kind of just attributed it to coincidence, but it was very weird. When I was younger, probably like I think it was like early high school or like freshman year or something, or around then, me and my parents were going to a church because I grew up Catholic. The pastor of the church was this very much older priest, but he was really good. Like his sermons and everything actually were interesting and compelling to listen to.
I had a preacher like that too. I very much appreciated that as a kid.
Yeah, which is kind of rare, unfortunately. And my mom, the reason we started going to that church was because my mom knew him because she went to Catholic high school, and he was one of the teachers there when she went there. But he was like very, very old at that time, even though he still had like his faculties and everything. And I distinctly remember thinking this was weird at the time. It was like Sunday Mass, or it might have been Saturday, because sometimes we went on Saturdays. But we were coming down, walking down the aisle between the pews, like coming into the church, and it was definitely Saturday. It was a small church, and they had stained glass like on behind the altar in the middle there. And on Saturdays, the time the mass was it's usually around like 5:00. And depending on the time of the year, the way the day goes, the sun would be coming like straight through the stained glass there when you come in. And I have this really distinct memory of like getting fucking hit in the eyes from the sun there, and the shape of the lattice of the window when I was like blinking and could see the inverse of the brightness looked like a death head skull thing. And I was like, that's weird. And like a few days after that, he died.
Wow. Very strange.
And it's like, I didn't know him that well. It wasn't really, there was no like other connection there. So I tend to just think it's like a patternicity type thing, where, you just find connections because of your brain, because of the way.
Did you burn down the church in retaliation like his ghost clearly wanted you to?
I tried, but I got really tired trying to walk there, and I went home.
Yeah, well, understandable. I'm sure he's still rested at peace. You lived across graveyards your whole life too, right?
Yeah.
Me as well. Yeah, I guess when we moved, that did change. But when I was growing up, from 1 to 12, we lived. The school was across the street from the graveyard, which was literally less than a minute walking distance from my house.
What's interesting, actually, to me about that is like, for whatever, I don't know why this was, because I was scared of like a bunch of different things when I was a little kid, but I never found the idea that it was a graveyard like right there frightening or anything.
No, I found it very sad.
I guess just because it was my whole life I was living there, I had like it didn't even enter my mind, you know.
I didn't like watching people walk carelessly across the graves and step on them. That pissed me off. It still pisses me off to this day. Because sometimes I would just look out at school and that's what I would see, and I would watch all day because I didn't want to pay attention. Yeah, no, I would honestly say I don't know if I'd call them spiritual experiences, just because I don't know. I like to, think of that, but I don't know. But if I do, I would say they're by and large mostly positive. The thing I have really negative experiences with are dreams. I have god awful, rotten ass shit dreams. Terrible.
Yeah, you've described that before.
One of the most interesting ones I've had. Do you want to talk about this? You don't have to. I don't.
Kind of, if you want. I don't care.
Okay,
I can always edit it.
Yeah, sure. One of the there are three interesting ones, I guess. The first one is when I was really stressed out after dropping out of MSOE, and this is probably just from the sheer stress of it. I had a dream, normal amount of sleep, 8 hours or whatever, but I swear to God, I have pictures in my head of a life where I chose to not be gay, to be normal, to get a regular job, and to die happy. Like that. I have a life where I chose everything different, and not in a negative way, not like do heroin and all this shit. A very realistic choice to make where I'm going to be true to myself or I'm going to be not true to myself, but I'm going to be a good person either way, because I think that's pretty deep within me. And I had kids. They had kids. I remember this very well. I'm losing pieces of it. I've lost pieces of it now, but at the time I remember there was not a single day I didn't remember of this fake me's life. I had a different name too, which is weird, but I remember seeing myself in the mirror a bunch of times and it was definitely me. And that dream ended the second I died. And I woke back up and it wasn't, I wouldn't say traumatizing, but it made me go, holy shit. The second one I had that was interesting, and this was like the caliber of nightmare my brain produces, is I am just in like a nice forest, trees, very green. Like around here, a forest like from around here, very nice.
Deciduous.
A little bit sparse, so that you can see, so it's not scary or anything. There was even like a little like babbling brook. I hesitate to use the word, but the sun is shining, a couple birds. And then after a while, I'm like, oh, I must be dreaming because I don't know where this could be. I'm not familiar with this location.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm going to wake up. And then the music, the birds stopped and the babbling brook didn't make any sound anymore. And all I could hear were my own thoughts. But I couldn't wake up for 5 hours or something like that. That's what it felt like. Like 5 hours, and the sun started to set, and I'm like, wait, what is this shit? Like the sun can't set in a dream. What the hell? And eventually I woke up, but it was not because I asked myself to.
I haven't had something like that, but I have had one specific dream I remember where I had false awakenings.
God damn it.
And that went like several times before I woke up.
Really?
And that was really upsetting because so it was like, a regular dream. It wasn't a good dream, but it wasn't like an outright nightmare. And then I thought I woke up, but then I was clearly still in some kind of dream. It wasn't my bedroom and everything. And then I woke up again and I was in my bedroom. And then I don't remember what happened exactly. Something happened. I was like, and I realized it was clearly still a dream. And I woke up again. And I think that happened a few more times. And one of the last ones that was really alarming was like, which I think this was when I finally actually woke up. But I woke up and I was in my room and I got out of my bed because there were like siren lights and things coming through the window. And I looked outside and there were just like SWAT, like people with like paramilitary stuff.
Great.
And then I woke up and that was really awful.
You ever waking up shaking from the trauma you just went through?
I don't think so. I don't remember my dreams most of the time. Yeah, I guess I'm glad I don't really have nightmares usually. Because usually if you have a nightmare, you remember it more so than if you have like a more typical dream.
I think so. The weird thing is I can lucid dream, and the unfortunate thing is I don't realize I'm dreaming when I'm lucid dreaming, so I have incentive to stay in the dream because it is somewhat going my way, but it never ends that way. The worst one I've ever had straight up is when it was 100% real feeling, like one of those you just can't distinguish it from reality,
right?
And Ted died. My brother died.
Yeah, you told me about
and
that.
And he was murdered. It wasn't just a death. He was pushed off a building. And to me, it was obvious, and it wasn't obvious to everyone else. And I committed myself to throwing my life away to find his murderer and kill him. And like, I woke up relieved that my brother wasn't dead, relieved that I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And it was awful. It was absolutely awful.
Yeah.
The one where I've done a double awakening, and it was also a nightmare. It was haunted house, standard dream, haunted house, fucking ghost girl, whatever, blah. Scares me, I wake up. Here's the part that threw me off. I jolted, and I felt myself jolt in real life. So it matched. And I was like, whew, thank God I'm awake. And then I just hear a scream. Not just a scream, it keeps going like an audio file looping a quarter of a second. And I'm like, what is that? And it's getting closer, and just outside the door, I see this thing run in at me, and it's the thing making the scream. It wasn't even the thing from the other dream. It was just this horrid thing. My brain was like, deal with this. And then I woke up. I was with Joe at the time. I woke up like screaming in fear, and he was like, oh my God, what's going on? And that was not just a jolt sitting upright. Yeah. I literally jumped out of the bed and scraped my knee trying to run out of the room.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a dream with like a frightening thing like that, but
you weren't scared?
You reacted, I mean, I've had ones where I wasn't scared, where there was like something that, in thinking about it retrospectively, I was like, that would be horrifying in real life. Right. But have you ever had a dream where it was like something frightening happens that you responded to adversarially?
Yes.
Because that has happened to me, and I find that strange because it's almost like I have no idea how, I guess with anything, obviously like supernatural, you have no idea how you'd actually respond in real life.
Honestly, as I've gotten more confident in my career and as I've gotten older from like 16, 17, I've had less and less nightmares because I've had more and more dreams confronting, because I have typically very recurring dreams. I've talked with Dan about this. I have about 8 dreams, and they all take place in the same place. I'm outside my grandfather's house, but it's not his house. It's this massive fucking 3-story mansion. There's a secret fireplace. I know the exact place to press on a brick, and it'll open the secret fireplace behind that. And it's changed recently, which is weird. Now it's an even bigger building that has a catwalk you have to go through. But there's always a hidden secret room that I like to be in. But right outside that room or in the room is a chute. And that chute will take you to another dream. And it will never be a positive one. I do have very good dreams. In fact, I think one of the happiest moments I've ever been in my life, and I don't mean that as a negative, I mean it was so elating, it was beyond like chemical high, was in a dream I had about Alaska that was absolutely beautiful in like every sense of the word. Audio, that's a weird way to describe it, but like the audio you're hearing, the things I was seeing, the smells, the tastes, the feelings, and then the emotional feelings were so beautiful that it was like an overwhelming stimulation.
I remember what I was going to say. I was going to mention one of the other really, like, one of the worst dreams I've had. Oh, first I was going to say, that's strange to me because I've heard many people say that where they have recurring dreams, and I can't think of a dream I've ever had more than once.
Really?
I always have, like, some kind of... But that's the thing, too, is maybe I do because I don't typically remember my dreams, and I know they say if you...
No, you would feel familiar. It's even if you don't remember being there, it's strange. It's like going back to an old place, and when you smell your mom's cooking, you're like, oh, I'm home. Yeah, that's the feeling that shoots through your brain.
I never really have recurring dreams, but one of the worst dreams I have ever had was, and this was weird too, because this was usually like when you have a nightmare, typically it's horrifying, like it's scary, it's urgent. And this was...
No, I've had some absolutely cosmic horror nightmares that are just terrifying.
Really? Yeah, I have... Well, I mean, that was kind of what I was leading up to, but most of the nightmares I've had were more like a crisis thing happening where it's
yes, yeah, by and large,
scary. Yeah. But so in this dream that I had, this was quite a while ago now because I can't remember how old I was, but it wasn't a long, long time ago. It was maybe like 2 years or so. In this dream, it was, everything was normal, relatively speaking, but I got sick with some kind of terminal illness. And I don't remember what it was specifically. And like, it was like you were saying with the thing where you lived this entire alternate life. It was not to that scale, but like I went through the entire process of it and I died. But I didn't like die and wake up. I died and then I restarted my life under the exact same circumstances. And I was a child again, like a very young child. And I was like, I remember getting to the point I was like going to school and I was like, is this real? Like but I was still conscious of it,
Wow.
and I was like, I can't do anything different. I'm just living all of this stuff. And I was like, this is the most horrible thing I can imagine. And that was around when I woke up.
Yeah, Nietzsche.
Yeah, like Kafka-esque, I guess.
No, Nietzsche says when you die, you start over again. And the exact same thing happens. You play your life out again and again and again.
Oh, I never read that.
And a lot of people, I think that's Nietzsche. I could be wrong. I could be retarded.
I'm not sure. I haven't read all
and
this
a
stuff.
lot of people, when you say that to them, be like, oh, that sounds awful. And I say, well, you live a terrible life then. You should change what you're doing. Because I would, honestly, with all the sorrows I've endured, I'd love to live this life again. It's amazing.
I don't think the idea of regretting things was what was frightening about it. It was the implicit lack of control.
But that's weird too, because it's there too. That's the other thing. There is an implicit lack of control. You were made very aware of it.
Yeah.
You're not usually that aware of how little control you have over everything. And
yeah, but
were you in first person or third person?
First person.
Are you always in first person when you dream? Typically?
Pretty much. I think I've had a few dreams, like rarely where I wasn't, but most of the time it's first person.
Mine's about 50-50. I've had, and you talked about the dead thing and it made me remember this. I had a dream where I was falling and I was like, oh, I'm dreaming, I'm falling, I'll be fine, whatever. I hit the ground, I wake up. I hit the ground, I died. I did not wake up. The camera went out of me and just zoomed out on my fucking corpse.
Wasted.
And like people coming to see what the fuck had happened. It was awful.
And the
like
GTA thing.
Yeah, right, yeah. You're probably wondering how I got here, but like, no, it was absolutely awful. As I've gotten older, though, I have gotten less and less nightmares. I just had one the other night, and it's definitely stress because my boyfriend's on vacation, so I'm lonely. And the dream was he disappeared and didn't say anything, but I found out through the grapevine that he was hiding from me, but didn't want to leave me. So now I had to seek him out, and it was absolutely awful, stressful.
Yeah, I would imagine.
No leads, nothing. Just like, oh, he's in this fictional whatever fucking town my brain made up. Find him.
I had a dream recently that it wasn't really a nightmare, but I wrote it down in a Word document because it was very interesting to me. And the fact that I could still remember most of it when I woke up was strange too, because that doesn't usually happen to me. But one of the things in it was, so you know how like when you have in a dream, something will be introduced, like a thing that has happened, and you will be like, oh, I remember that. And you like remember the whole thing, even though you didn't in the dream like experience it happening.
Right.
I had something like that with a movie that does not exist called Paradox. That was this.
What a fucking paradox, I might point out.
Which was like this pseudo Lovecraftian Ridley Scott alien style body horror thing that was really good. And I wish I could remember more of it specifically.
You could make it or something,
because I could make it. And I was like, this would be great. And yeah, it was very weird.
This sounds almost fake, honestly. Like I've said this out loud before and it sounds fake. But when I used to dream, and this hasn't happened in a while, I've actually, honestly, very recently ditched the recurring dreams, which is kind of cool. But that happens in cycles for me. I used to dream of grandfather's house, all that, and the 8 dreams. But on occasion, if you didn't go up to the chute and go to the other dreams, there were rooms in the house that were nightmares. And I started to deal with them one by one. But there's one I don't remember dealing with, but I must have, because the mansion just has disappeared at this point. I haven't seen it in years. And it was awful, what I remember about it. I think it's honestly just a good representation of a fear of the unknown. You said Lovecraftian, and it's what made me think of it. It's the attic. You have to go up this long flight of stairs. So it's a bitch to get to.
Yeah.
It's out of the way. You wouldn't go here unless you knew where you were going or you had never been there before. And the only memory I have of it, I don't have a memory of... Actually, I think I do actually have a memory of defeating it. But I don't remember if I'm thinking I have a memory and just faking it or if I actually... But I know this one's real. And it's me discovering this room in the house. Because I used to explore each room before I knew what was in there. Which is a weird thing.
Yeah.
And you go up these long stairs and eventually the hallway goes from a regular like staircase with walls on each side to it's a dodecahedron, I'm pretty sure. It's like the inside of a D12 or D20 where it's very hard to tell just how large the hallway is. And it starts to like get bigger and bigger in this shape. It doesn't swell up. You keep going and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more of these like almost spheres get added onto it and onto it. And the space between the hallway and the floor and the stairs and the floor gets larger and larger. So now you're just on this staircase and there's nowhere to go but back or forward. And eventually it'll lead to a large atrium that is like a couple 100,000 sides almost. And some of the sides have holes and they let in light. And they all converge on this central pillar. And the only thing on the pillar is a doll that doesn't have a face, but it follows you wherever you are. I don't know what that's... I think it's honestly just the fear of the unknown, kind of.
Yeah.
And what I'm remembering I remember seeing that, and you can't see the walls of the room, so you don't feel safe in the room. But you don't know there are walls, I guess. You know there's a ceiling, more so, that I could feel the ceiling. I can't feel the walls. So it kind of goes on forever, and it's just blackness.
Yeah.
And this fucking thing, and it very clearly follows your eyes, not your hand, not nothing. It follows your eyes. And when I first saw it, it freaked me out so much that I got close to it, and I backed off. I was like, fuck this. I know what's in that room now. I'm boarded up in my mind. What I remember dealing with it is, I actually remember going from a room, you were talking about earlier, you have like this standoffish thing. I remember fighting a lot of these internal demons at one point or another, like a fucking video game.
Yeah, I didn't, I should have elaborated on that, because like I said, I don't have recurring dreams, so I've never had something like that, and I don't know what the significance of this was. I don't remember anything else from the dream, because this was a very short thing, and it was right before I woke up. But I was in the passenger seat of a car, and it's very rainy out. I don't remember who was driving next to me, but, you know, I'm just sitting there. It's like a normal car ride. And then there's, like, screaming and some kind of, like, spectral ghost, horrifying, like, ghoulish ghost thing rapidly flies up and, like, is against the windshield. But instead of, like, screaming, I, like, just yelled back at it, and then I woke up.
Yeah, because you yelled, yeah.
And it was weird because I wasn't aware it was a dream, and I woke up, and I wouldn't have expected to have that reaction.
I remember one specifically, there was, like, a rec room in the house, and I don't remember what the horror thing was.
Yeah.
But there's something in there that I was afraid of. And I remember sometimes I didn't get to pick which room. I would just start in a room or whatever. And I remember, like, this wasn't recently, but I would say it was like maybe like 3-4 years ago. And when I like went back to college and I started getting my shit together. And I remember this is, I think, the first one that I like beat. Because it never turned into like physical combat or anything.
Right.
Like, it would always be shouting and then it would go away or something. But I remember it was a rec room, so there's like billiards tables or whatever, and there's like all this shit out there, and they would organize themselves into patterns and numbers and familiar numbers too, like my birthday and shit. I hated it. Or like what I hated most is when it's someone I love's birthday, and I want to, you know, clearly I just want to burn this room to the ground because it's fucking with me now. And I just remember being like grabbing a puku, snapping it over the end, and like with like now it's like a pointy fucking spear, and I'm like,
yeah.
Come on, motherfucker! And I never went back there. Like it just died. Whatever it was, went away. Like no more shit. The way I beat the doll, if I'm remembering it correctly, was I went up to it and I felt like I was supposed to touch it, but I'm smart enough to know that my brain likes to fuck with me. So I didn't touch it, and I said, I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'll be back later. But I couldn't go back later because it was gone.
Huh.
So it ran away, not me that time.
That's interesting. Yeah,
And ever since then, that mansion's gone.
I feel like I had talked to someone else who had a similar thing as far as having a building with specific rooms in a recurring dream. I think that's probably relatively common, if I had to guess, because your brain likes to compartmentalize things.
Yeah, very much so. It's a good way to do it too, in terms of spatially. I remember a funny dream when I was at my Uncle Jim and Aunt Robin's house, and they had this giant fucking house, unrealistic, massive thing with no walls, just this huge open space and furniture arranged as if there were walls, but there wasn't.
Huh.
And I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And they're like, oh yeah, it's on the 3rd floor. And you could just go up and down and there's all this shit every direction, but there's no goddamn bathroom anywhere in the house. Because if there's a bathroom in the house, you piss your pants. And your brain knows that. So your brain eliminates the bathroom.
Well, finish your thing.
That's it. Your brain, I've noticed my brain will eliminate bathrooms from dreams. Like, oh, you know what? I've been having delightful recurring dreams now that I think about it. And I'll go into it, but you can say your thing.
I was just going to say, this is something I've noticed that's very strange to me. Because I don't know about you. I remember, like, I think only one instance this happened. But when I was a kid, I pissed the bed one time. Because in my dream...
Yeah, probably.
Because in my dream, I was like, I think I don't remember the line of logic, but I peed in my dream.
You pee in a dream, you pee for real.
Yes, and that's what I thought for like the longest time. But then more recently, I think it's if I had to guess, actually, it's probably a direct reaction to that. But I'll have a dream, and in the dream, I'll be like urinating, like as a thing in a different scenario, and then the act in the dream of doing that will make me realize it's a dream, and I'm like, oh no. And I immediately wake up and like check if I pissed myself, and I didn't.
Oh, good.
And it's just weird, because now it's like, I guess the trigger is flipped.
Yeah, it's
other
set.
way.
Yeah. Recently I've been having delightful recurring dreams when I can remember it. It's like taking trips to this beautiful coastal island place, and it's not just like taking a trip. Like, I own this nice, lovely like chateau on this beach, and it's warm and it's sunny, and there's like a theme park nearby. There's like a fictional version of Milwaukee that doesn't suck ass and isn't anywhere in the north. It's an unrealistic city, but for some reason my brain's like, oh, that's Milwaukee and Pittsburgh, and one side of the river is Milwaukee and one side of the other is like Pittsburgh or some shit. But it's beautiful, and it's got like architecture from all over the world, and that's where I've been going to more recently. And it's always to like take it. It's instead of a meetup where we were trying to go to like do D&D, it was a meetup where we were trying to go to this massive like do whatever the hell you want theme park plus hotel, and it gets closed down, but we're the last guests, so it's just us in this fucking awesome like theme park, water park, arcade, crazy thing.
Pretty cool.
No, it was like dope, and I'll tell you about the best one I've ever had though. Those are really good. Those are like relaxing, and the end of it's nice too, because it's even like time to go back to work and then like slowly wake up, like go to bed and wake up in the dream. So it's like this nice transition too. The best dream I ever had. It doesn't make any sense, but that's fine. I used to have an old Toyota Camry, and if you know anything about these cars, they can't go up mountains or anything. But I would drive it with my boyfriend all the way up to Alaska.
Oh, wow.
Impossible, probably, in this thing. And I'm not just talking driving up. I mean, going over fucking mountains in this thing. At an unrealistic angle, too. Like in a video game, going over mountains.
I'm kind of curious now, just offhandedly, if there are routes up through Canada.
I have no clue,
I don't know.
I don't know if it's Alaska. That's just the very far north. And in a dream, I can very much feel temperature, so I always feel cold. And I know we're always near the end of the trip, and it's a little rough because like it's snowing really hard, and there's some traffic in front of us, or whatever, because it's so snowy. But we make it through, and we get to a town, and it's a very small town. I've been there a couple times, not in real life, in the dream, and maybe like 200 people, and there's like 20 buildings or whatever, and they always point to this mountain, and it's this big, like, not like Mount Vesuvius big, but it's this big, beautiful mountain. And whenever we get to the place, it's sundown, and by the time we get to the top of the mountain, which is where we're going for some reason, it's night, and the Aurora Borealis will happen, and it's not just the Aurora Borealis, it's like an insane rainbow that can't really happen. And then we'll drive the car up the mountain in the snow too, like the 20-foot deep snow. It just goes right over and through it like a ski. And we'll go down the other end of the mountain, and it'll hit like this jump, and then the car flies. And that moment of the car flying over this frozen waterfall, it lands and it's fine. There's no fear. There's nothing. It's bliss. This flying feeling through this beautiful, just slightly cold, because I like the cold a little bit, like Aurora Borealis North with like the person I love most in the world right next to me, all at once in this, like, it's just amazing. And I've had that like 4 or 5 times in my life that I can remember, and every time it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's weird. I can't think of any like extravagantly good dreams I've had, but not in like a bad way, you know what I mean?
No,
just
yeah,
like nothing leaps to mind.
Until I started having those and then the vacation ones, I didn't have good dreams. And those are only about 6 months old max. It's since I started being less neurotic, I've had much, much better dreams.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Fuck. There's also terrible ones. One time I did a dream where I was in school and I did coke in the bathroom and I was all alone, and then I came back and everyone's like just looking straight at me, and I'm like, they know, and like I run out of the building and the police are already on their way and shit, and I have to like outrun them. It was fucking like that was fucking awful. I don't even do coke. Like I didn't get any of the benefit. I didn't like it in the dream. I'm like, this sucks. And then
who can afford it? That's probably, we have more than enough material to wrap up, so I'm trying to think of something to end on.
You ever been to a carnival?
Yeah.
One time we went to a carnival in Wisconsin, and I think she was a little Indian girl, and her hair got caught in that fucking her hair got caught in that what is it, those like shitty Ferris wheels, those shitty makeshift wooden Ferris wheels, just poor as trash dirt, and the carny didn't know what to do, so her just his scalp ripped off.
Really?
Yeah.
It's awful.
I didn't see it. I heard all the screaming, and I was told later what happened. And when I was like 2 years old, I was voted Strawberry King in that same town. That's not a joke.
Absolute legend.
Ted got voted Strawberry Prince. Fucking idiot.
That's it. That's what we call it.